Hi everyone, this is Michael Skye, and here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with a good friend of mine, Michael Richards. We're here on the iPad video, just using this technology for the first time.
Right, amazing technology.
And I've just returned to the States from about 2 years traveling in South America and on 6 continents really, and I'm back here kind of in the heart of the empire. And what I've been doing the past 2 years is just exploring the world and just living in the question of what's next and what kind of world do I want to live in, what else is out there, so many questions. And I'm returning here and just connecting and visiting with some old friends and people who are doing really interesting things. And Michael Richards is a man I have a lot of respect for, and talk about a visionary in action, someone who's living it and doing it. Some of the people I've been most inspired by in my travels are just humble people who are every day they're being the change. And I think there's so much I can learn from you and other people who are in the question of, well, what do we do now? What do we do, those of us who are in transition, who want to be a part of creating what comes next? And so I'd like to just take you around Michael's world and show you a bit about what he's doing here. I'll kind of weave in your history, I guess, maybe as we go along today. There's a lot I could say, but why don't we just start like right here, right
Sure.
where we are. I visited you last time here in Cedar Rapids just after the flood of 2008.
Right.
And we recorded another video, but a lot's been happening here in the 4 years since, and you're working on a vision right here, like you're making it happen, and you want to just tell us what your vision is.
Sure. Well, I'm 62 years old at this point, and in my earlier years, I traveled the world also. I've been on every continent except for Australia and Africa, which I know you've been to both, so those are great experiences we can share with each other. But in my travels, I've been looking at, how we as the human race live and what we do, and some of the things that work, some of the things that don't work. And, I've come to the conclusion that a lot of our governmental structures and our large industries are absolutely dysfunctional. And we could spend our life, analyzing that, criticizing it, complaining, or which I still, I write essays that are critiques of what's going on. But I like to see it as I spend maybe 10% of my time doing that. And the other 90%, I'm about building what's new. At least what's new in our own life, in my life and my immediate family's life. Because I'm about taking action and creating something that, in my estimation, is a better way of doing things.
And that's what you're doing right here. So let's take a look around and just go on a little walk with you here, and you can explain how everything integrates.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you last visited here 4 years ago, and that was when the single largest disaster in the history of the state of Iowa took place. And it was an absolutely massive flood. I was in this area along the river with our state archaeologist right after the flood. And from his archaeological research, he found out that there had never been water this high in 7,500 years of human habitation of this river valley. The indigenous peoples that settled in here 7,500 years are still evidence of their settlements. Nowhere in their settlements, in the archaeological evidence, was there evidence of water going as high. So after the flood, people are talking about natural disaster, an act of God, all this. And, I came to the conclusion, this is not an act of God. This is a result of human intervention and how we've mismanaged our land and water for 100 or 200 years. The prairies where we are here in the middle of America are one of the single most ecologically resilient ecologies on the planet. There are oak savanna forests and prairie grasses and incredible amounts of wildlife, buffalo, elk. There was more protein on foot with buffalo and elk than all the cattle raised in the United States today. But it wasn't owned by anybody. So actually, as far as nutrition and production of food, we've actually gone backwards, but it's part of a banking and ownership system that is perpetuated. But to perpetuate that kind of agriculture where it's fenced off and we need row crops, and Iowa is the most fertile land on the entire planet, but it's all planted with corn and soybeans, which are monocropping, basically factory agriculture. And so we replaced this resilient ecology with a very actually vulnerable ecology. And the difference between prairie plants sink down their roots about 12 feet into the earth, and crop plants are very shallow. So the difference is the water, because of the type of agriculture we have here in the Midwest, the water just runs off almost if it was pavement. So now we have water rushing to the rivers during torrential rains. And so even though this was a huge disaster, it actually is, people ask me what caused the flood. I said, well, that's a 100-year story of how we manage our land and water.
Yeah. So now what you've done here is, why don't you just show us some of what you've done here? Because a lot of it, you're starting to build a self-sustaining neighborhood and ecology, and you've done a lot of it by salvaging what was otherwise going to be thrown away from the flood.
After the flood, 25,000 people were evacuated. About 1,300 homes were so damaged that they were literally just demolished. But of those 1,300, 500 of them were very structurally sound. They could have been saved, but they just were demolished. Now, I had met with the city council here talking about an alternative plan of saving houses, and then if you didn't save the houses, save building materials and reuse them. But it turned out the official policy, which fits into kind of the general how we run our economic systems, was just wholesale demolish it all and then build new. We're always using new materials and harvesting new building materials from forests. So this is kind of in counter to that. Our first step is to save whole houses. As you can see, this house is it's been totally gutted after the flood, but the 2x4s and the subflooring are all intact. And this is how we started with our 5 houses. They were in the same condition. We only have to go back 40 or 50 years. And Iowa as a state was a model of a sustainable system. We had small towns where local entrepreneurs had started local businesses that hired everybody that lived in the town. All around there were farms producing food for the people that actually lived in the area. Here in Iowa we had hundreds of local meat processing plants, local vegetable and produce processing plants. All the food that anybody needed was processed right here close to where people lived. So there were two things. There was plenty of resources for everyone, and also a very close to, there were still people with more than others, but everyone had plenty. We didn't have poverty. And those few families that because of illness or maybe the death of a breadwinner in the family, maybe temporarily wouldn't have enough, neighbors helped them out. In fact, it's in the actual legal code of Iowa that townships, each township, which is about a square mile, that there were not social service agencies, but the families in your township helped you out. So we had this system of sustainable, really a sustainable human ecology that operated within a local economy. And for the past 40 to 50 years, we've been stripping that out. Yeah. Literally stripping it out. Yeah. None of those local food systems even exist anymore. Agriculture has been consolidated. I describe Iowa now as a corporate colony.